We can start? Okay. I'd like to start the ABR meeting for, what's today? February 21st? With the first item on our agenda, and that is public comment. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on an item not on today's agenda? All right, I'll close that portion and go to the approval of the Architectural Board of Review meeting of February 6th. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
All right, Keith, seconded by Stephanie. Does anybody have any comments to the minutes before we vote?
Madam Chair, I do, actually. Sorry, we're late. We're out of parking spaces.
Because it's Tuesday.
Because it's Tuesday.
And everybody can park there on Tuesday.
Item 3, which was 1122, Indio Morto. On the motion 2, it says utilizing a portion of the creek. Could we change that to utilize a portion of the creek? And then item 6, I don't know if you already went over this, it said study the location of the proposed bike parking and possibly additional bike parking. Add the word bike.
Good catch.
And that's all I found.
Does anybody have any other comments to the minutes? Yes. Kirk.
On item 1, on number 6 under the motion, to strike trellis. And then also under item 3, I was concerned about the specificity. I thought we, on number 4 under the motion, I thought we were looking for both corners of that building, not just the south-facing portion. I know Keith had made several comments about the, is it the west? Is it the west?
Talking about the south end from the public street on those views.
Were we just talking specifically about the south elevation, or?
I thought it was the south and the west corner that you thought, and we were worried about impacts to the neighbors on those two elevations.
We were for privacy, and I actually believe we did talk about the massing on both of the elevations.
So I don't know if we can revise that, number 4, to say south and west facing portions of the proposed building.
I think we can do that because we discussed that.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything
else, Kirk?
That's it. Thank you.
Anything else from anybody else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. The next item of the agenda is ratifying, where am I? Ratifying the consent calendar of February 21st. Can I have a motion to ratify that? Made by Paul. Second by
Is that
Chris.
for today? Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's for the consent calendar for February 21st, yes.
So I should run through the... Okay. So my name is Kathy Allen. I've met some of you before. I'm filling in for Tony Bowman today, who's on vacation.
Hi,
So
Kathy.
today's consent agenda, item A was 3851 State Street, and that received a final approval submitted. And item B, 4099 Foothill Road, also received final approval as submitted. Item C, 512 Bath Street, was approved as submitted for a review after final, and Paul Zink was the reviewer today.
All right. Thanks, Kathy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Announcements. Requests by applicants for continuances and withdrawals, future agenda items and appeals. Do we have any announcements, Kathy or Jaime?
No announcements today.
No
Do you have
announcements.
announcements? Sorry.
Okay. take that.
Madam Chair, I just thought it'd be good to bring up the issue of the site inspection you did for me last week about tile, Spanish tile roofs, and some of the questions that are being brought out with respect to detailing. The concern that we've had for a couple of months now has been the different types of Spanish tile installations that are occurring throughout the city. We're getting a lot of questions from roofers. So we created a subcommittee to try to work out that issue. And I think there's some fundamental differences between what is accepted in El Pueblo Viejo as far as a tile roof with respect to the way the starter courses are completed and the bird stops and the mortar and whether there's random boosters applied. And I think I'd like to be able to have that more consistently put on the plans if that's what we want. And if not, then we'll make sure that that isn't a requirement, because often the contractors are calling the city and the inspectors are questioning now, saying, what kind of roof should we put here? Should this type of detail be part of the roof? And it's kind of unique because I think Don did go out to look on Milpas. It was the Fresh and Easy building, and noticed that, there's quite a bit of variety on Milpas, really not that type of installation that has occurred.
Right.
Yet there are some various
There
new
aren't
buildings that,
There aren't any grouted bird stops on Milpas Street.
well,
but I
granted, there
guess
have been a lot of new buildings
Right.
on Milpas, but they're coming, and so we really need to be careful what we expect, on that part of the city versus on Outer State Street. Maybe there is some variation that we'd like to see. But I certainly don't want any confusion out there with our inspection staff and contractors calling us and saying, well, what kind of roof do you want out here? So you'll be seeing a little bit, or you're going to see staff asking you to clarify those details if you haven't already when it comes in for final review. Thanks.
Thanks, Jaime.
And I don't know if you have any questions related to that.
Do you have any
topic.
questions, anybody?
So I was a little confused because you mentioned El Pueblo Viejo, which has very specific, almost standardized
Right.
details that are acceptable and variations on those that are acceptable. So how does that apply to us?
Well, when you have a similar architectural style being proposed somewhere in the city, there's confusion as to what type of detailing. Should it still be the same type of roof that's found on that type of architecture in El Pueblo Viejo?
Okay.
And, sometimes there is this question of, well, what did you intend to have part of that appearance look like?
Yeah, that should be, in my experience anyway, it should be a standard description and several details that are associated
Right.
with the eave, relationship to vertical walls that are adjacent, the ridge.
Right.
All of that needs to be.
I think we're getting
plans.
most of the details, but we're not getting that verbal description of how to execute it.
It's also, I found confusion with regards to gutters and how they're attached, not whenever they're applied. Sometimes they're not even on buildings with brick tile roofs at certain eaves, so I think it's more confusion with the gutters too, and the look is different when there are gutters.
Yeah, we have a final checklist, and probably going to be tweaking that checklist to give more information for architects to provide us, so there's that clarity for those types of issues, and we'll do that.
Yes, Gary.
Is 1,000 feet from the mission, do we have standards for that? I mean, I know that, I thought that there was particular style that needed to be within that area.
I don't know if you remember having those discussions when we had buildings there. There was some differences of opinion with respect to that standard. It's called the Mission Special Design District, and this board, as well as the Single Family Design Board, has allowed different types of architecture in that. And I think it's really the question of the prominence, of how prominent it is. We've had some contemporary styles allowed if they're not visually prominent. So I've researched that a little bit, and the intent was to protect, the entryway into the mission. That there's nothing that mandates a specific style for that area.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Jaime. Any more questions?
I have an announcement. I'll be absent from the next meeting. I believe it's March 5th.
Okay.
Be out of town.
Got that, Kathy?
Actually, I'm sure I also have an announcement. I need to do the 5 p.m.
Okay. Subcommittee reports, any? No subcommittee report. Okay, so we're on to our regular agenda. Item number 1, 404 William Moffett Place. So this is a fourth concept review. The motion at the last meeting, which was on 9/06/2011, was continued indefinitely with the following comments. Provide context photos of adjacent buildings, indicate heights of adjacent buildings, provide site plan alternatives for the hangars, and provide an accurate site plan of all proposed and existing structures.
Can you hit your oval right there to turn on
Hit that little oval in the middle. Exactly. And your names for the record.
Kim Lilly, Pacific Metals Manufacturing and Kim Lilly Construction.
Roger Rumpierre, General Manager, Atlantic Aviation.
I'm Andrew Vermond, the case planner for airport projects.
Okay, thanks. All right. Go ahead.
We've reshaped the scope of the project in that we moved the hangars to the south of the FBO to alleviate any possibility of obstructing the view from the terminal. Originally, we had the T hangars were going to be built here, and now after the Planning Commission came out and they looked at it, and they also agreed that it would probably be better if we road located them to this spot.
All right.
And then and these are views from across the street where the hangars will be located. Instead
That's
of
the view
over here.
from, if you were standing near the sewer treatment plant, looking out to the west.
Across the street. Okay. Do you have any photos that are taken a little bit farther away looking at,
this is the farthest we could actually get.
like up and down the street looking at it?
This is taken from the sewer or the sewer
Right,
process
which is
across
right
the
across the street.
Yeah.
Do you have anything from farther away looking at it from either the north looking south or the south looking north?
I have some.
Do you have anything? Yeah. Might help. Unless nobody else thinks that it's necessary.
So.
This is one looking from the new terminal down to the, I believe that's the FBO there, and the current location of the Atlantic's T hangars. This is inside the security fence at Atlantic's parking lot, and that would be...
Which is right here?
Yes.
Yeah, that photograph is taken from right about here.
Looking that
About
way.
where hangar number 3 is. This one is also inside the tarmac.
Looking towards the parking lot?
Yeah, that's at the corner of their security
here?
fence. So it was right about where those planes are.
That's that
Shot
corner
this
right here.
direction,
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. This, a little further out, about here, still looking to the east along that fence. This one, right along the fence, looking from approximately the corner where the fence takes a 90-degree turn here, looking this direction.
Some
Looking back at the hangars, some of these are redundant, just a little bit better.
Those are all from being on the airport.
Right.
Like if you're in an airplane or in one of
Those are
Rogers'
outside.
machines.
Yeah, these two were taken from across the street. Those were all
Right.
outside.
And then did you make any changes to the design? We should probably look at that again because we have some new board members.
Yeah, we did.
that haven't seen this project at all.
The request was made that they wanted a little different design that's more traditional to the Santa Barbara Airport, so we popped the roof up as I think one of you gentlemen suggested. We changed the style of it. We put skylights in there to liken the old hangar building that you view from the terminal. Even though this faces the street, we put plexiglass skylights to be sure that rocks thrown from the street into an airplane, it would be less likely to be an attractive nuisance for some kids to throw some rocks through and incur some damage on the interior, the airplanes that are inside.
We have more elevation.
All four views.
All right. Do you have anything else you want to add to the presentation?
We're just anxious to get it done.
Do we have any public comment for this item? Okay, question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, could in November, the Planning Commission reviewed this item in concept and had some comments in their minutes that were sort of addressed toward ABR, so if I could go over those.
Please.
Planning Commission expressed an appreciation for the applicant's flexibility with changing the site and agreed that the original proposal was not supportable. Commissioners Jacobs and Jordan asked that ABR spend time to create architectural variety that breaks up design and includes landscaping and consider facades. Many commissioners agreed that preserving the view of the aircraft from the aircraft terminal is important and preferred this option to the original proposal. And Commissioner Schwartz also requested plug-in electric power carts. I don't think that's particularly relevant to the architectural design, but...
Okay. Is that it?
Yeah.
Thanks. Questions from the board? Stephanie? Any questions?
Quick question. Do you have an example of the appearance of those windows and particularly the fiberglass material that's going in it?
They look just exactly like the panel. They're the same shape as the panel, but they would just be a clear, well, I shouldn't say clear, the opaque. But since the color is polar white, is what the selection is, and that's the adjacent hangar that's this hangar that's right here. It's the same color as that hangar. They'll be rather unnoticeable.
So those windows are opaque. They're not.
Yeah, they're opaque.
Paul?
And I see what you don't have here is an elevation showing all three buildings together to show how that would be as a whole. And that's, I'm just noticing that. There's no personnel doors. There's no regular man-sized door that goes in here. The only way you get in is by opening up the big door.
No, the side doors.
They already did put a side door.
The side doors are, next page.
So the two outer ones have side doors, but the middle one doesn't?
Right. These doors open. They're very small. They're, compared to the other doors, they're quite small. So this door is a bifold door that opens, and that's the access into the hangar.
And then this is the one that flips up?
Yes.
Okay.
And these fold to the side.
Oh.
And they're all staged by Atlantic Aviation. In other words, his personnel opens the hangar up, pulls the airplane out, and stages the airplane for departure. So the user of the hangar, for all practical purposes, is not in the hangar.
Right. Okay. One last question. Is a landscaping plan, do you have any plans that show this building in relationship to any proposed landscaping as well as the existing landscaping that's next to the parking area?
We haven't, in that the parking lot was already landscaped when we built the FBO 3 years ago.
Okay.
And the problem is putting in the additional landscaping. We can certainly put shrubs or anything like that, but anything of any height, I think Andrew would be able to speak to it more clear, is an FAA regulation where you can't have it that close.
And there's already landscaping along this fence line
And in the
that's
center
here.
and on the
So
side.
there's,
So one of the questions I was wondering is what that separation is. Do you require like a 3-foot walkway so somebody can get behind here? I was kind of looking for a larger site plan to sort of see what was happening there.
The separation is really, it's maintaining the AOA in that you have to have, 12 feet from the, 10 feet from the fence line, so that people couldn't climb over a tree to get onto the ramp.
Okay.
so it is 10 feet.
So there's a 10-foot separation from the fence that's at the parking lot to the face of the building. And that separation will be all asphalt? The way
Yes.
it's being proposed right now. And the landscaping happens to be on the parking lot side of the fence?
Correct.
And the asphalt's already there.
Correct.
And the airport won't allow us to put any landscaping on the inside of the AOA.
All right. Thank you.
Gary?
I think all that, yes, that's all the questions, so that's good.
Kirk?
Madam Chair, just to continue with Paul's question, because it does look like there is existing landscaping in this landscape strip adjacent to where your building goes, if I understand it.
Yes, in the parking lot.
In the parking lot, so,
Correct.
but it's very low, ground cover,
Yes.
basically. It looks like it's neglected. So is there an opportunity to plant in that space,
No.
and augment that?
No. It's, the landscaping is maintained by Kitson. They actually do a very good job, so it's not, but there isn't anywhere you could really put any landscaping there without being in violation of the Federal Aviation Regulations.
Well, for example, couldn't you plant a vine that would grow on that chain link fence? Would that be
No,
against
the FAA
regulation?
won't allow that either because you have to be able to see through the fence.
Okay. And
It's a good idea.
Just to continue on, there's also, I noticed some trees in that parking lot, like in this photo. There's trees of this height. This
Yes.
one, there's no opportunity for adding trees of that height?
These
or type
trees
They're in the middle.
They're in the middle.
Okay.
There isn't any, there are no more empty areas of grass or anywhere where you'd be able to put in any more trees.
Okay. All right, thanks.
All right, Chris?
Just, again, to piggyback on to that, in that existing planter, is there an actual height limit that against that fence? I mean, is there some sort of a code that we can point to that says, no, you can't have this
Yes.
here?
Yes.
What is it?
Andrew, do you know?
Madam Chair, I disagree that there's an exact number as far as height limitation. Generally speaking, a standing adult should be able to see clearly through the fence and should be able to determine, regardless which side of the fence they're on, whether or not someone is hiding along the side of the fence. The TSA guidelines are intentionally vague in that because they have to be applied nationwide. And so they do allow some flexibility. However, the intent of the landscaping restriction is to not create something where someone could hide and, manipulate or damage the fence in any way.
Okay. And the other question I had was, are these still considered to be temporary structures?
Yes.
Okay.
Our lease expires in 2016, and the airport is planning on taking the property back to build long-term car parking. And we will pay in advance the cost to have the buildings relocated if we need to.
Great. That's it. Thanks.
All right, yeah, Gary?
I did have a question I wanted to ask. If there was a fence line here and here, same as this fence line, would that area still be part of the flight area? Could it be landscaped if this was not accessible from this area? And then could it be landscaped?
It's Are leases zoned as AOA and ramp? I don't know. I'd have to get with the airport directors and find out if they would allow that. Right now, it's considered ramp, and our lease doesn't allow us to put any vegetation on the ramp side of the property.
Chris, you want to start? Because a lot of the conversation is revolving around landscaping.
Okay. Well, from the way it sounds, we're not going to be able to get any additional landscaping to screen this thing. So I don't know what I could really add to that other than, we'd hope you would explore any avenue possible in terms of screening this from the street. Another thing that I'm wondering is if it would be possible, as you had done in a previous submittal, to space those out a little bit more so it doesn't just look like one enormous building. If we put 10 feet in between each, then we get a little more light in between and break down the apparent overall mass of this. I know it'll stretch it out a bit, but I think I want to get the board's opinion on that as well, if that would be a helpful endeavor. But other than that, I don't know what we can do with landscaping, really, in this case.
I have two. Can I comment?
Really quick, yeah, because you could probably answer if they can be separated.
Well, right now, that's why we elevated the buildings in the center, so that it would break it up. So right now, there will be 3 different heights instead of the original plan, which is all one height. We can separate them if you would like additional differences there. What we can do about the fence line, and the airport did give me approval, if you would like, we could put fence screening along this line, to where you can still see through it if you're close enough, but it's more like a construction type of a fence windbreak. They have like the green or the black colored fencing.
It's like a mesh?
Yeah.
Not landscaping, you're not talking about a vine, you're talking about a
An
mesh.
actual, that attaches to the fence.
Okay.
All right, any more comments, Chris? Kirk?
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I did view the last meeting. Since I'm a new board member, this is part of my requirement in order to comment and vote on this project. I have to review the videos of the last meeting. And I also went back to the previous meeting, the first meeting, I think it was the first one. So I have several comments. And I think, obviously, it's a very beneficial to your project and to the airport in general, and the move that you've made. Very much appreciated. But now I think we need to consider seriously that these are buildings that are viewable from the street, and especially because of their height, they'll be significant structures over the tops of the cars in the parking lot. And I know, having done some work on the airport, actually worked on some hangar buildings of a similar size along Hollister years ago, that even with these standard buildings, prefabricated and so on, that you can, there's a lot of opportunities actually for creating facades on them, and for modifying fenestration, getting windows of different types, as well as breakups in those windows to have it look more traditional. And so that's my first comment, is to look at the more traditional styled but more recently built also hangars along Hollister Avenue, which have a character similar to one of the photographs you showed of the old military style hangar. So just in general, because this is a tremendous opportunity, because of the upgrade that's recently been done particularly along the street facade of the new terminal, to have hangars that also are of a more traditional type in terms of, especially in terms of the portions that face the street and the public. In particular, to study further the elevations that do face the street, as well as the side elevations that are viewable by the public and also by other folks using the airport, whether for parking or for whatever reason. If there is an opportunity to separate them, of course, that would be helpful. But if not, even whether there is or not, the elevations that you show need to show all three buildings together, because that's really what we're approving. We're not approving just the single building. There's another building linked to this. So we need to see what that's going to look like altogether. So in fact, you've got, for example, these side wings, which are sloping in this direction. There's no gutter shown. And then you're going to have a building right adjacent to it, which is sloping in the same direction. So how are you going to handle the water that comes there? I'm raising questions here, just in general.
Front to rear. They don't from side to side.
Okay. But so we don't have a roof plan that shows us how that's going to be handled, how the water's going to be handled, whether there's going to be gutters or not. There's a lot of missing information.
Still a concept review, but they're really good points.
Right. Well, for me to be able to evaluate it architecturally, I need to see the facade as all three buildings proposed together, adjacent to one another.
No?
Yes, that's it. Oh, there's one other thing: lighting. If there's any exterior lighting being proposed, we would need to see that in cut sheets as well.
All right. Thanks, Kurt. Gary.
Okay. I appreciate the move towards moving the project over to this end as opposed to being in the view. And I do like the idea that you've got some fenestration or some on the street side, and I think these are all positive moves. I do agree with Kurt that we do have some projects that we have approved in the past that replicate more that military style. And I mentioned this once before at a previous meeting, and I still would like to see it at that style, but I just want to voice my opinion towards that. As far as the separation of the building, I'm okay with an 18-inch separation of the buildings on these as proposed, because it's quite possible that more hangars would be proposed farther on down the road. What I'd really like to see, the main thing I'd like to see, is to see if you can ask the airport department if the fencing can go to the building, and this no longer being an area where animals or dogs or people can travel into the airway area, and that it could be landscaped, because it's clear to me that it could be easily be designated off the airway. And then we could get, even if it's low-lying landscape, we can get landscaping next to the building. And I think that would be, for me, that would be way preferred than some of the other solutions. So I would really encourage to get permission to fence off some small sections next to the building. That's the most thing that I want to see. I did want to talk about the colors. The colors of the building that's proposed, a bright white. I don't know if that's a color that I think is acceptable to have it. I think something that's a little more muted than that is going to be some, and also some trim colors should be used. So I think we'll get more into the colors later, but right now I don't think the white is as acceptable. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate the change that you made. I really do appreciate it a lot. The color, I would agree that more of a beige would be more appropriate. If you really want the white, then I'd want to see some pictures of the other white one that you're mirroring and making sure, because I looked for some pictures of it and couldn't see it. The spacing of it, I don't have an issue with the way it's being shown close together, but just need to have an overall picture that Kurt talked about, because I understand that the square footage is tight, minimal, and by putting 5 feet in between each building, you just lost 15 feet somewhere else, or 10 feet that you can use. So I can understand the logic of keeping it tight. The one thing having to do about the frames around the window, or something about the window, I mean, this is what is perfect for a metal building, but like he made reference to the hangars that are off of Hollister. They're great-looking buildings, the ones that have kind of a wooden Old West facade, and then there's a metal building behind it. If there was a way that you could put some kind of a framing material or a sill or something to doll these up a little bit and not have as many, maybe have half as many openings, but spend more money on each opening to make it look more reasonable, instead of just simply inserting a translucent panel versus an opaque panel. You know, that'd be one way of dressing up the building, making it look more pleasing to to the eye because it will be seen from the public. That's my biggest complaint or concern, and I think it's a fixable thing. You don't need to have this window tight in the corner, and you can rearrange these pieces. So it's a great project. We found a solution. We found a location. Now we're just doing a little bit of the eye wash stuff. So thank you.
Keith.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks. Paul?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with the previous comments. I think you got the right location now, and I agree with Paul. I think actually keeping the buildings grouped tightly would be better than spreading the mass out. You have the adjacent T-hangers that are approximately the same scale. So, yeah, I think it's a matter of studying the facades architecturally that are visible from the street, and particularly just maybe breaking up the regular pattern and rhythm that you have going with the fenestration now. Whatever you can do to add additional detail, I think it would be needed. So, yeah, I'd like to see the composite elevations, some study architecturally of the detailing and layout of the fenestration, and obviously if there's any landscape opportunities in the parking lot that could help screen it, that would be great. Perhaps a section that kind of shows the relationship of the building mass to the street and the fence and existing trees might help us get kind of a comfort level of what you really are going to see. So I think that's it. I think you're on the right path. It's just articulating it now.
All right, Stephanie. Thanks, Keith.
I just have one question about the height. Are there minimum heights that you have on the sides? The sides, I'm sorry. On the sides, the two wings, if you will, that go out. Are there minimum heights that you're trying to?
Yes.
Is it at the minimum now, or?
There's a leeway between the top of the wings or the winglets
And the
on the
clearance
end.
at the top.
And the clearance, everybody has a little different idea how much clearance, but when you got a $15 or $20 million airplane going in, you want to have plenty of clearance. So a couple of inches probably not a big deal, but I think we've got 12 inches from the highest airplane that can fit in there to get underneath the wing compartment where the door is.
Yeah. We're just looking for a little relief on the
Height.
pitch, the roof pitch.
Yeah, if we were to go to a quantum hut hangar, like the old military styles, it would take a lot more room.
Yeah, right.
We did try to get those skylights to look as much like the old hangar, because the old hangar is all glass all the way across, but it didn't have much fenestration between the panes. We did show a frame around each window. Now, we can certainly adjust that depending on which color. I could care less which color you guys want. Frankly, whatever is picked, and then whatever color for the framework would be easy to include. I mean, there'd be no difference of what we're planning to do anyway.
We'll have a couple examples the next time we come.
Okay. I may be the only one, but I don't necessarily think a contrasting trim color is appropriate on a building like this. I'm kind of for whatever trim color you use being more similar to the color that you pick for the field. And I agree that it's a better location and that there could be a little bit more work done on some of the, like Paul was pointing out, the locations of some of these windows being really close. I don't know. I think that if they're the minimum sizes, that it can be within a few inches of the minimum, and this is what it needs to be. I think you've done a decent job of breaking up the massing, and any landscaping you could do, of course, would be great. Showing composite elevations. Yeah, I think everybody said pretty much everything. So would somebody like to make a motion to help move this project along?
I'm sure I'm willing to make a motion, but I feel more strongly than most of the board regarding the extent to which additional detailing and character needs to be added to the building. So, but I'll go ahead and make a motion. Restudy the exterior elevations, particularly those that are visible from the street, to be more in keeping with the best hangars that currently exist in the airport. That the hangars need to have more character and additional detailing, and to lose more of that strict prefabricated look. Restudy proportions and locations of windows. I would even say restudy or look at options for different types of siding other than that single flat vertical panels. I know there are options. I'd like to see some other options there that would help provide character. Study all possible opportunities for new landscaping wherever they may be available. Provide composite elevations that show all three buildings together, and a roof plan showing roof slopes and gutters if they do occur. And then as the project progresses, of course, we'll be wanting details of rakes and eaves and so on, and windows. And if there's any exterior lighting to be proposed, we would need a lighting plan to see that, and cut sheets of the exterior lights.
All right. Do we have a seconder for the motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay.
have a discussion?
Under discussion, yeah.
Kurt and the seconder, would you be all right if we kind of, I hate to say water down, because I completely agree with you, to make this building match a $15 million plane that's parked inside. But I realize this is an industrial building, so I'm coming from it where I'm all right with a metal building, and you've had something in there about a strict prefabricated form. And would you be all right with, I would say softening the words, or just, removing that portion about the strict, strict pre-manufactured building? That's what this is, and that's what they've always proposed from day one.
Right. I'm not saying they can't have a pre-manufactured building. I'm just saying that it needs to lose some of that character of being pre-manufactured. And because I don't know exactly how else to articulate it. And I'm not suggesting that they add portions that are not prefabricated, but I know these can be customized, having done
Okay. That's fine.
done similar work. So.
Maybe if we change the wording to include further study ways to integrate customized detailing into the prefabricated structures. Do you
Yes.
Do you understand what he means by that?
Yes.
I just wanted to make it really clear, because my discussion item was going to be about the same kind of thing, about making it really clear and making sure they understand things like when you say in your motion, study the proportions and the locations of the windows. To me, that doesn't really make it really clear to the applicant what we're asking them to do. There's a lot of different ways that you can do traditional detailing for a hangar. There's lots of different styles of traditional hangar details. So
That's right.
I think it needs to be more specific, that wording, that particular wording.
Well, that's why I began the motion with studying existing hangars on the best examples of existing hangars on the airport site, because I think the old military style ones, which do have breakups in the windows and do have different, more traditional groupings of windows than what's being shown here, that would be a good example to follow, as opposed to getting into trying to design the thing for them.
Right. I think that's a good idea. So maybe before, when we're done with discussion, if Gloria could read back what she's got regarding the architecture, not the landscaping and those things, but any other discussion item before we have Gloria read that back?
Sure. Just to make it clear, this is an indefinite continuance back to full board. Is that what's being proposed?
Yes.
Okay.
And it might be beneficial to the applicant to hire a designer in town just to do some eyewash, because if you have an engineer design something, it looks like an engineer laid it out, and the panel schedules and the proportions. But I look at the window sizes, and it's a 2-to-1 ratio or maybe a 3-to-1 ratio, but really window would be a different size rectangle, and the groupings that he's making reference to would help with a little more artistic flair. I mean, this is Santa Barbara, and it is a $15 million airplane going in this building.
You're asking them to sketch and provide different kind of drawings?
No, I'm not asking them for that. Just if they're going to be laying out the windows, they can incorporate a designer to help them lay out the windows in a way that maybe you don't know what we're asking for or what they're asking for. It would be beneficial to you if you got the assistance of a designer with a capital D to help with the artistic flair.
These are
I disagree
drawings
too,
stamped by
actually.
an architect. I don't think we need to go there, really. I think the applicants understand.
And we've already, I just wanted to remind you, we've already directed him to look at examples in the airport of other traditional hangars that you're perfectly capable of doing, whoever the architect is. KEA. So that's
Can I say anything?
really quickly, yes.
I'm just saying, we had the architect look at the military hangar with the thing, and we tried to have him design the windows that would look as much like that military hangar that you could look at from the terminal, and try to make our windows look as close to that as we could.
Okay, then why don't you bring photos of that next time, so that, and then.
Photos of what?
The old hangar? The military.
So you kind of get where we're coming from. We're going to leave it at that. You have to come back anyway.
No, I understand that, and we also said a little bit, Madam Chair, what you're saying is trying to make this hangar as unnoticeable as possible. It's a big hangar, but putting a lot of
That's going to be
different colors
hard.
on it is a little...
That's going to be hard because we can't put landscaping, and that's why everybody's concentrating on.
Yeah, but you bring a lot of stuff around the windows where it really draws your eye to it. I would think that that's not as...
I don't think that's what we're asking. I think we're asking for the best examples of traditional ways of detailing a prefabricated structure.
Okay.
I think that's what the motion says, right, Gloria? Is that kind of what we all agree on?
Hangers need more character and additional detailing, and to use more strict prefabricated.
No, we don't. We decided to scratch that.
Further study ways to integrate into the customized details. I can't
Study further ways to integrate customized details into the proposed prefabricated building.
And then there was a comment in there earlier that is, I think, about looking at examples of existing traditional hangar detailing at the airport.
Study exterior elevations, particularly those visible from the street, to be more in keeping with the best hangars that currently exist at the airport.
Perfect. Any more discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
I abstain.
One abstention by Stephanie. All right, motion carries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, running a little bit behind. We're on to item number 2, 900 Calle de los Amigos. This is a final approval of maintenance buildings, laundry building, gazebo, clubhouse, pool, cafe, relocated trash enclosures. Project received project design approval on September 6th. The last time we saw this project was final approval on December 12th, 2011, with the comments that okay, we're ready. We're ready for me. Comments. Final approval as submitted with the comment that any changes to the hardscape or landscape to return on consent. Your name for the record.
Madam Chair, members of the board, my name is Justin Van Mullum. I'm with On Design Architects.
All right.
Just to refresh anyone's memory, this is about a 60-acre campus. We've been working on it since 2005. We have just received, at our last hearing, we received approval for the residential portion of the project. And so now, one of the things that the board asks us to do when we receive project approval is to come back in digestible portions of the project. So we tackled the residential first, and now we are tackling some of the other commercial buildings on campus. This is just kind of a broad view of some of the types of buildings on campus, some of the neighbors. And the major streets are Calle de los Amigos, which comes off of Modoc. That's right about here. This is one of the holes of the golf course of Hope Ranch, and then this is Torino that comes up. Those are the two public roads. What we're focusing on today, the areas in green. So we have the gazebos, which is basically, it's like a neighborhood clubhouse, and there's also laundry in it and a sink and a little covered area, and that happens in 3 different locations on campus. And then right in this location here, we're tearing down an existing laundry, and so we're replacing it with a laundry that is just a very small utilitarian building. The existing maintenance building is right in this area. We are tearing that down so we can put in a parking lot for staff. And then we also have the new maintenance building, which is 1 story from the parking lot side and 2 story from this side over here. And then in front of that is a 1-story building, which is our new laundry. And then over here this is the existing pool, and this is the pool building. One of the things that's new is we're looking at putting in a cafe in this area. One of the requests as we've gone through this project is an additional option for eating, and we had it in this area over here, and it's going to work out better, I think, closer by the pool, so I'd like to show you that probably last. Moving forward, so here's our maintenance building and the laundry. One of the things that's changed is we had to work out accessible path of travel, so we've moved our parking over a little bit. What's not shown in this is some of the planter pockets that have happened along here that is in the landscape plan that has already been approved. But we still have the planters. So our accessible parking spaces moved over so we can get a path of travel that comes all the way down and across. And this is something we've been working out with the pre-case with the building department. So the basic changes to this is we took a notch out right in this location here of this building. You can see it better in this location. What we did is basically we just moved this back. It was flush. We moved it back so we could create a place for a truck to back up and not be in the lane of travel. And that way they could back up, and a lot of times we'll be receiving for a remodel of one of the 200-plus units on campus, toilets, lighting, sinks, and that way we can back it right up. We can put it into a storage container quickly, and we just didn't have the room as we started to study things. So that's a change. Another one of the changes, we've added awnings. We wanted to have a little bit more interest in the building, and the colors that we've looked at, this is a color that we had 7 different colors approved as part of the residential portion of the project. This is one of those colors. And so basically the maintenance building would be this green. It's up against a hillside, and it backs up on a nice gradual hill in oak woodland. So what we're proposing is the green color, and then awnings would be this black. So I think those are the major changes that have happened on the building since you've last seen it. That, and we lost a bathroom in this location here, so we could put in the large electrical panel that we found out was going to be required because this commercial laundry took so much power. So we were able to work that out with the building department and take up the space of the restroom to create an enclosed mechanical room. This is an enlarged site plan showing one of the gazebos and then the only laundry building. Now, more on the south side is the other gazebo, and since you've last seen this, we restudied it. For some reason, the covered area was on the north side. That didn't make sense as we started to get into things, so we switched it to the south side and kind of redid the bocce ball court, bring it a little closer. But that's the major change there, so our accessible path of travel came around. Here is the gazebo building. So we have an entry element, and then we've got the covered patio. So here's our entrance. It's just a small activity room. We have a laundry and kind of an area where if you wanted to bring some food and lay it out, you could have a little gathering there with friends. And then a restroom. So it's a real simple building, and we try to keep it very similar to the detailing that is on the residential buildings currently. So there's a lot of the similar detailing that you've already seen, same lighting, things like that. And the color for this building is this golden color. We've tested it on campus and got some good feedback from residents. So it's cheerful but not too bright color. Here is our cafe building. So basically so here's the building. This is the existing library. It's right here. And we're not planning on touching that portion of the building. There is an overhang that happens right here. You can see the overhang. So we're going to push the building out past that overhang, and then we're going to create a little entry element. And let's see, so the library pretty much stays as is. And one of the other things is we're redoing the bathrooms so we can have changing rooms and bathrooms that meet our required number of restrooms. So that's a remodel in this area here. And move on to elevations. So here's our existing library, and then there's our new entry element. And we were showing our venting so we can see what our requirement is. It's the O'Hagan cloaked vent. Here's our equipment well, and we've tried to make that as low profile as possible. We're working with a kitchen designer already to see what our needs are. And then there are some awnings, kind of a little sign awning here, and the awning. So the building is also is this yellow color, and the awning is this deep green, which will pick up some of the green that's in the proposed roof. This is just, let's see, that's the showing the laundry building. So it's the only location right off of Calle del Amigos, but kind of back behind a parking lot. And it's just a simple building. One of the things we had to study is how to make the building accessible, and so that's why there's a couple different doors, but that's what made the building as small as possible, is being able to provide the accessibility, more of it on the outside, less of it on the inside. Just kind of trying to keep within the residential character with a lot of the residential detailing and the same lighting as well. Most of these details you've already seen with the residential portion of the project. And we purposely tried to make the residential work with these buildings because they're similar in scale, size, so the detailing seemed to work well. The newer details, like the scupper detail, and that's for the maintenance building. And then the lighting they're all the same lights as were approved with the residential. So
All right.
basically sums things up.
Thanks, Justin. We have two public speakers, starting with Heike Killian. Did I say that right?
You did.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah, is your mic on?
Thank you. We're the neighbors adjacent at the end of Torino. We've been in front of you several times with different suggestions and interest in the project. This is the first time we've seen some of the drawings on the maintenance building and others. My only thing I'd like to ask for your help with is the maintenance building is one of the only buildings that will be two-story or read two-story because it's going up high, as well as the new administration building. I've been asking since the beginning of this project to find out if this will be visible from the main street, from Calle de los Amigos, Torino. Torino does go up the hill, so there are people's homes on the other side of the valley that look across the valley and onto the oak woodlands. So I was happy to see there's some architectural effects being added to the building, but I would ask for your input to make sure that this reads well when you're looking at the whole campus, because this plus the parking lot that's going to go behind there is going to start going up into the tree line, the other houses that are going up over there. So anything you can do with your landscaping suggestions and anything that will help. To me, I think this is going to change kind of the look of the whole campus to start getting some of these taller buildings. So I would just ask for anything you can do to help make sure that that this doesn't kind of stick out like a sore thumb, but kind of reads into the kind of sprawling look. That's really the main thing. Oh, and black awnings, I mean, again, because I'm concerned that you might see it from afar versus just up on the building. I don't know if that's a color. To me, haven't seen a lot of examples of black awnings. Something that might read better with the oak woodlands, grays or greens. I don't know. I'm trying to just make sure that it's not something that you draw your eye to from far away. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Heike. Ruth, Georgie?
Good afternoon. I am the other neighbor that has been in front of you several times. I'm Ruth Georgi. Maybe I misunderstood, but on the storage unit that's going to be along with the maintenance building, is that a portable unit? It sounded the way it was expressed. I thought is it a storage or is it built onto part of the maintenance?
No, it's I call it a storage unit because it's enclosed, fully enclosed, but it's always been part of the project, and it's just, you have a roll-up door.
It's a building.
Yeah.
It is a building.
It's just
okay.
part of the building.
The way it was phrased, I kind of went, oh, was this going to be something added on? And the other question, was there a modification to accommodate the cafe that would impact any of the parking spots, or is that something that's still same number of parking spots, same configuration that we've been...
Actually, this is just you talking.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just asking questions. We'll ask the questions for you.
Okay. So that was one of my things, because I didn't remember the cafe sticking out and coming up in front of the awning portion that's already in existence.
Okay.
And I'm just concerned that that might affect some of the parking, which is another situation that we've been working towards for 6 years.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ruth. I'll bring it back to the board for questions. Go ahead, Keith.
Justin, could you just address the parking on the cafe building?
The cafe building, we have expanded in certain areas where there is currently either overhangs or sidewalks, but there's still enough area to have a accessible path of travel, so no parking spaces were taken up by the increase to the cafe pool building.
And the increase in area hasn't triggered any additional parking requirement? I think that was the concern.
No, the increase in area has not triggered any parking requirement. It's the same number of residents.
Okay. And could you show us the aerial around the maintenance building, and that might provide some clarification about some of the existing trees and landscaping, and maybe you could sort of delve into that a little bit concerning the visibility of that maintenance building?
Really quickly, we're behind. Talk fast.
Yeah, here's the existing maintenance building right here, and so the parking lot will be right in this area, and the distance is so far away that I don't see there being an opportunity to see the building, but we've also made sure that the building is painted a dark color. And keep in mind that we're here for final. We've got project approval. We haven't changed the size, bulk, and scale of the building. We're just looking at detailing of it.
So it appears from the aerial there's trees in front of it. Are there additional trees being planted in the parking behind?
There is additional trees being planted in the parking lot in several different locations, and also behind it as part of our restoration project.
So there's trees in front of it, and there'll be trees behind it as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
More questions? Anybody ready?
I'll go.
Chris.
Let's see, if I can just grab this. The pool cafe area on the north side, let me figure out what's, that's A 1.16.
Over here, Justin.
I'll go up there too. I'm curious, there's no landscape plan to look at, but I'm just wondering if this is a planting area in front, or what's happening along that front
I think
facade.
this is pretty helpful. You can see that there's a lot of trees that are surrounding the building. I tried to get a decent photograph, but there's a lot of trees. None of those trees will be removed. So they're mature trees, and we're keeping all of them.
Okay, and there's understory planting there as well?
Hedge along here.
Yes.
Are these the planters
shrubs.
here, or are there actual additional planters along the...
There's no planters currently in this area.
That's what we're seeing.
And so, yeah, these are existing, and and we're keeping all of these. So
It's on the back side, I think. Isn't that on the back side?
that's on the back side and it's on the front side currently.
Okay.
And so this is showing the front,
Oh, okay.
and this is the back right here.
The other question was about the pool, if there's any planting in that zone, or if that's as stark as it looks on the plan.
There hasn't been a plan to have any planting in that area, but we
Just
could
so you know.
No.
And, okay. Short answers.
The only other thing,
Yes, sir.
I guess, was a question for staff. The staircase along the south elevation of the maintenance building on the plan. Not the maintenance building. What's that? Let's go back a little bit.
You can find that quicker than me, Justin.
Yeah.
Right there.
Sorry.
Okay, I was curious about this staircase here, if there needs to be a landing to break up that continuous flow of steps. And actually the 12, okay. And then, because the plan view shows that staircase in a bit of a different location, so just to clarify exactly which is correct on that.
The plan is probably correct at where it's shown, because we're working through the accessibility portion of it, and so it got moved back a little farther.
Thanks, Chris. More questions? Kirk.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the two color schemes. Are they applying to different buildings? Or are they?
That's correct. The maintenance building, which is closer to that hillside, we made it a darker color.
Okay.
And then the other buildings, which are the gazebos and the laundry and the pool, we have this brighter yellow color, which is it's a pretty bright color for the existing campus, but we've tested it. We feel like it
and then
can hold its own.
So, in some of the details, it showed there was one. Maybe it was just a mistake. It showed copper downspout, but there's no copper.
No,
that flashing your gutters.
That's
they'll all be painted.
That was a mistake. Yeah. It's
Okay.
Everything on campus right now is galvanized.
Okay.
And galvanized painted,
Okay.
so it'll be consistent. I'll check that.
There's the gutter there.
Yeah, I think it was over here somewhere. I saw copper mentioned somewhere. I'm not sure where it was. Anyway, you could check that. On detail 11, it shows PVC wrap around the structural columns, and it looked like everywhere else it's wood. I noticed redwood on the gazebo, for example, and so detail 10 and 11 show the PVC wrap, and I'm just wondering why you're using that.
We've tried to mix it up a little bit, and the PVC wrap is painted. We've used it on a past project. Everybody seems to like it. It's aging well, and it looks like wood, and it doesn't feel like a true PVC. It's pretty hardy stuff.
So you've used it elsewhere on the campus?
It looks like painted wood, yeah.
Okay.
And it doesn't have a sheen to it. It's a really decent product.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Kirk. Gary, any questions? No, over here. Stephanie.
You detailed some of the windows with some trim board on some of them and not on others.
The maintenance building, we did not detail that building with trim board. It seemed like just too of a utilitarian building to give it that type of detail.
But all the windows on the
Your mic, Stephanie.
Are all the windows on this building supposed to be the same, or some don't have the mullions?
Come over here and point over here, Stephanie.
So there's I think we caught that after we submitted it. So that's
Okay.
we did.
So
yeah.
I have a different set.
Right.
I see. I was looking at a different set. All right.
Yeah, it looked to have the divided lights in a maintenance building. It
Okay.
just looked a little.
But
strange.
all the other buildings, like this activity, you don't have the trim on this one?
No, we don't have the trim on this building either.
Okay. And you don't think it's appropriate on this?
It certainly could have the trim. on this building, where there's only 3 of them on campus.
And then that building is,
Right.
all this is new, right?
Right.
All right.
Is that it?
That was it.
All right. Comments? Who's ready to start? Keith?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think what's being shown is consistent with what we've seen before in the previously approved residential portion, so I think it's ready for final approval. I'd like to see the trim added to those little pool buildings, as Stephanie pointed out, and correct the inconsistency with the windows on the maintenance building. That's it.
All right. Nothing new? Gary?
Just one comment, and that would be on the maintenance building. I think, let's go one floor. I think that this elevation right here could use some something to it, because it is I think it's available to the street, is that right? Is there a street and a sidewalk next to it?
Well, it had 8 feet of electrical meters, but we removed those.
It had 8 feet of electric meters?
We could probably find some type of fenestration that could fit in.
Could we put some sort of detail on there, or fenestration, or something other than a drive-in movie theater screen? Yeah. That's my only comment.
All right. Kirk?
Sure. I agree with the previous comments, and also I'm wondering on detail 55, the parapet detail, whether the metal cap could be, the flanges that go over the wood trim could be reduced in height to a minimum, say like 1 inch. The way it's drawn, it looks like it's 2.5 inches. Other than that, I think it's a nice proposal, in keeping with the existing.
Chris?
I agree with the previous comments, and the only thing I'm going to add is that I would encourage the applicant to increase the planting in the pool area wherever possible, whether it be, I don't know, if you have opportunities to create new planters or to add potted plants or possibly vines on the columns of the arcade there. But that area seems quite stark, and it seems like a good opportunity to upgrade the area with all that's going on elsewhere. But that's it. That's my only comment.
Did we have an approved landscaping plan on this project?
Yes.
So it's already approved and finalized?
It is. But it doesn't mean that we can't look
Yeah,
at it.
I don't recall seeing this area on that plan, but maybe I wasn't focused on other areas. at the
There's a
time.
lot to look at, but
Yeah.
I just wanted to point that out, that it might be already approved.
Right.
But it sounds like he's
It's an
willing to-
encouragement, not a requirement.
Who did I get? Comments from Stephanie?
Did anyone comment about the awning color, the black awning color?
Ruth did.
Huh?
Ruth did.
Yeah. Can you show that color again?
That one
black.
right there? Okay. And we're talking
It's not
about...
the blackest black.
Okay.
But,
And they're just these real small little awnings?
Yes.
Oh, there's one on there,
It's a
too.
big one. One big one.
But that really faces into campus, not
Correct.
towards the neighborhood. So...
Are you making a comment
No,
about him?
I don't have any comment about that.
You don't have any comment about him? Do you have any other comments?
No.
Okay. I just had a couple. You were talking about the equipment, in the cafe, and it's drawn pretty big. You're probably, is that for just kitchen equipment?
Yes.
Okay. So you're probably going to end up with a makeup air and exhaust. So if you could just, I think that's an awfully big area, and you do have to get your 15-foot distance away from the two, but where is that? I think it might be nicer if you just screen those separately. Yeah, instead of just, you're going to have two pieces of equipment separated by 15 feet. So he's creating a really big well that looks like a screen rather than it could look like a chimney or something. That's my opinion. It may not be anybody else's. It just looks like an awfully big
So if there's any way...
appendage to the roof that doesn't need to be there. So my opinion would be to screen them but separately. And did you describe the trash enclosures that's part of the application?
The trash enclosures are, they're just wood. It's just, that's what's currently on campus.
Like how many of them are there and where are they? You didn't talk about them at all.
I can come back with those when I come back with the maintenance building. But it's just a wood, we're still working out the accessibility and which ones are required.
Right, that's why I brought that up. So you're not going to include that if you get, whatever you get today, you're going to come back with it.
Right.
And I agree that there needs to be trim added to those buildings. And that even though we have a storage building, it's a 2-story building, I think it should be detailed the same as all the other buildings. I think that's kind of the consensus of the board.
So even the maintenance building gets the trim around the windows? Okay.
Yeah. And that's all I have. All right, so Justin's asking for final approval of everything but the trash enclosure that he hasn't gone over yet. So I don't know how the board feels about that, but does anybody want to take a stab at a motion?
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair. This would be for final approval with the following comments. Add window trim to the maintenance building and the laundry recreation buildings. Add fenestration to the south elevation of the laundry building. Applicants encouraged to look for opportunities to add additional planting at the pool deck area. And I think that's all I have.
Have a second.
What about that?
Before we go under discussion, second by Gary, under discussion.
You had talked about the enclosure of the roof.
Yeah, I had a couple things to add.
Okay.
That one of them is if we could separate the screening.
I'm fine with it. It's a horizontal mass and it's a long horizontal building. And my experience is that with restaurant kitchen equipment wells, you fill them up pretty easily. So I think it's fine architecturally.
Well, all right then. Look at it anyway.
Is this for final?
Yeah, and I had a couple. Go ahead.
No. I was just wondering if it was final or just comments to go to consent for final.
I think that we're trying to give it final except for the trash enclosures is the idea. I had written minimize the parapet flashing on detail 55, whatever detail that was. Detail, I don't know what detail number it is. Minimize the parapet flashing. And then the project will return on consent for details of and locations of all the proposed trash enclosures.
I'll just come back on full board because I have other buildings.
Oh, okay. So the next time the project comes back, it'll include the trash enclosures, Gloria. So put that in there. And as long as we made it clear that all the buildings get trim.
You said maintenance buildings?
You said maintenance building, laundry
outbuilding.
Yeah. Okay, because I don't know if you mentioned the clubhouse and the gazebo, but that already had detailing. So, okay. Okay, so any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Yeah.
I just wanted to request regarding the planting to the deck area, did you want to get any more specific just when we're going through plan check to make sure that the zoning plan checkers in making sure that what you wanted is actually included in the project, so.
Actually, the landscape has been given a final approval.
Oh, that's
So it was a
right. Oh, okay.
suggestion made, and the applicant has agreed to look at it.
Very good.
So
Thank
I
you.
don't think we should add anything in the minutes about that. Okay. All right. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
We're still behind, a little more behind, and we're on to item number 3, 1130 North Milpas.
Don, I have rolled ones. Would you rather see those?
Do you have changes? No changes? So it's just the same one?
Same one.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
Maybe
Sure.
easier to see.
Okay, that's fine. They got one over there already? We've got one over there. Oh, yeah, now you have your own. Okay.
Introductions.
Yes.
I'm Steve Carter with Design Arc Architects, Susan Van Atta with Atta Associates, Trish Allen,
Suzanne Elledge, planning and permitting.
and if we have questions, Eric Lassen with the Santa Barbara Bowl is here, and Rick Bowler is the general manager of the Bowl, and he's here to answer any questions we have.
Chair, I'd like to make a comment first
Yeah.
before we start. This project is the Santa Barbara Bowl, which is located mostly on the county-owned properties. And today, they have a portion of the project on property owned by the Santa Barbara Bowl Foundation. So typically, you just do a courtesy review of the development on the county-owned parcels. Years ago, you looked at the master plan and provided comments. Today, you're going to be looking at both the parcel owned by the Santa Barbara Bowl Foundation, which requires ABR approval and Planning Commission approval, and you'll also be looking at the other development on the county-owned parcels. So I'd like you to provide comments separately on both of those, and they'll go over which is which in part of their presentation, but let's try to keep them separate, so then when we move forward with the conditional use permit for the foundation property, we'll have comments for those specifically. Okay.
And we have two modifications we're looking at.
Right,
also.
there's conditional use permit and two modifications for setback encroachments.
Right.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right.
So we are located on Milpas, right where it turns into Annapurna. We have, this is our last project in a 20-year master plan with the Bowl. So just looking at this briefly, we have the Overlook project. We've done Phase 1. Phase 2 is under construction now. We've completed the stage and basement and the pavilion in the main part of the theater. We've done a gate structure, Glen renovations, and Wendy McCaw Terrace, which is here. So you can see from these photos, this is the pavilion, Wendy McCaw Terrace. This is the gate structure down at the start of the Glen, and this is the first phase of the Overlook up here. As far as this particular project, we're looking at 1130 Milpas, which is this parcel next to the county property, and this gets clearer as we flip through a little bit more. So, you know, this is the existing Dryer building is right here, which is their box office, and then there's an existing stone wall that runs between this property and the next property over, which is shown here. We have, it's mostly residential down in this part of the project, as you can see from some of these, and there's apartments back in to the north of the project. And let me flip through these real quick. This is topo map. We're in the process, in fact, I'll show you a site photo real quick. We're in the process with the City Council and Public Works to abandon Luena Drive, which goes through their parking lot.
I don't know if you guys can see it, but Luena starts from Anapamu, loops around, and then it goes through the parking lot back to Milpas. It serves a few residences on Luena Drive. So to flip through real quick, this is Luena Drive that we're in the process of getting Santa Barbara City has a maintenance easement over county property, so it's county property as the underlying land owner. We end up with a R3E1 split designation on the 1130 site. So these are the setbacks under double setbacks because we're a commercial and a residential zone that we normally have. That's counted as front yard, and front yard. This is all the county property coming up through here. Once that road gets abandoned, it changes. We have front yard setback, side yard setback, front yard setback, so this is our building envelope. And this is the proposed building within the setbacks.
Outside of the setbacks.
Yeah. So what the goal of the project is right now, this is the county property over here. Currently, we have pedestrians and automobiles sharing this driveway. In 2005, the bowl had the opportunity to purchase this property, which they did. And this will give us an ability to design a plaza area where we can separate, pedestrians coming in here from our automobile traffic coming on this side. We have taken the functions out of this, the existing dryer building, so administrative functions are here, ticket sales are here. We've designed a small restroom here. There's a floor plan that I'll show you when we get to that. The dryer building will remain in its existing condition. There's a conference room in there that'll continue to be used, and security uses that during the shows. We're keeping, there's existing oaks up through this area. We've done planting, along the edges. This is, plaza area is basically 2% slope, so it's all handicap accessible. Handicap parking places, shuttle bus pickup, which loops around and takes people up to the bowl. What's that?
Do you want to talk about the mod requests there?
Oh, and then what there is existing is there's a cut sandstone wall that runs along here, or runs basically here, and it changes to a boulder wall coming up the side. And the grade is 4 feet taller than the sidewalk out here. So we're proposing on grading this out, taking this wall, cutting it, and returning it back into our project. And that'll show up on the elevations. This is, the existing wall is 53 inches tall. And because we're in the 10-foot setback, we'd like to keep that height. Although if the mod's a problem, it can be dropped, but we'd like to keep the existing wall height if we can. This same stone, this rectilinear cut stone, we'd like to use on these planters too. These are 30-inch tall planters. And then on our back, the mod back here is there's the roads here, and it drops off into the oak area. So 46-inch existing retaining wall along here. And we'd like to put a rail on top of that, 3.5 feet. So total from ground to the top of that rail's 8 feet tall. So, and that's within the setback, so that's what we're asking for there too. As far as you guys are looking at the rest of the site too, on the county side of the site, we're looking at putting a planter along here. There's a easement that runs here to a couple of residences, and there's a residence up this canyon. And so we would like to put a curved planter here with trees along that, tending to screen the parking lot a little bit. And we have valet parking we would like to add here. This would be in temporary barricades defining the area, and depending on the show and the use, the bowl can increase that up into here, across here, as the show requires. So that's valet bicycle parking, which right now they have in this area. They've just started it probably the last year or two in this area. This is the city parcel. Everything else has been shaded out so you can see what you're looking at for the city portion of the review. And then floor plan, again, administrative area, ticket sales, public restrooms here. We've done sections. You can see the existing grade. This one's taken up here, the restrooms, so we're getting rid of that amount of grade. It's a concrete building, green roof is what we're proposing on that, and it's buried into the hillside and holding the hillside up where we cut into the hillside. So section C is here, and then as we work our way to the back, section B, and then section A, it gets pretty close to grade back in here. There's not much excavation by the time you get back to this part of the site. So it's basically it's shaving this part of the site to match the roadway that comes in on the county side. So
Except this is the line of the existing grade here, so there's quite a bit of excavation, even on the back.
At the building, yeah.
Right,
There's an old green. Why this one's shown
Oh,
straight.
just not at
This
the
is
parking. I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's an old greenhouse here, greenhouse footings, and that's why it's shown like that versus the natural slope that comes down. You guys have on top of the hill over here. There's a big apartment project that you guys have previously approved that's not built yet. Right now, there's just a single-family residence there. As far as elevations go, we're looking at an integral colored plaster over concrete structural walls. And this we don't need to get into colors now, but this will tend to match what we put on the pavilion. This is the stone wall that we're taking out and wrapping it back into the project site. We have tube steel trellis elements that we're using for shade structure, growing vines up to the walls and then out on that shade structure to give some shading to the building. Green roof on top of the building, and then we have a skylight at the back of the building, which shows up here, and the back of that's picking up some retaining also. So the grade at the very highest point comes up this high in the back where the building's pushed back into the hillside. You can tend to see it in elevation. So from your street view, you'll be basically seeing this elevation, corner of the restroom, and then a face of the building. So it steps back from the street. It's pretty, trying to keep it a nondescript background building so it's not competing with the existing dryer building, and really emphasizing the landscape, which is a major feature of the bowl as we walk up the Glen, and that Glen landscaping is supposed to come all the way down to Milpas, trying to give a real nice pedestrian feel to it. That's what our goal is. Susan, do you want to talk about?
So I was just given a good lead off in that the landscape is very important here, and for a long time this area has been a lot of asphalt, and now we'll have a very warm, welcoming experience for the people coming to the bowl that starts down at the street instead of waiting until you get up to the new gateway up in this area. We are bringing the same feeling in the landscape that exists in the Glen down into the backdrop. So these are existing oak trees shown with the open circles, and we're planning on using the same woodland understory kinds of plantings that we've used up in the Glen, and they're all native. It was necessary in order to bring people along the edge of the road and not be part of the road that takes the utilitarian traffic of setting up for the shows and the big trucks, and separated that traffic, and those several oak trees and a palm, really 2 oak trees and a palm, are offset by other oak tree plantings within this area, and this whole hillside, which is currently not landscaped, would now become also an oak woodland of a drier sort. And then we actually are using native plantings throughout the site, and then as we get closer to the street and along the edges, we start to emphasize the ornamental character of the drought-tolerant native landscape. So we have these beautiful flowering trees right along the edge. As Steve pointed out, we've got screening along this edge. The reason we can't have the usual planters in the middle is that this also doubles as staging area for the trucks. To get an idea of the size of those trucks that need to maneuver through this space, which is a very practical consideration, obviously, for the county bowl, that the trucks can get in that.
Yeah, here's typical shot of truck traffic. We have touring buses and trucks. Before the show, they stage in that area, and you can get an idea of the scale and the maneuvering room they need.
So really, it's a dual-purpose space. This is a maneuvering space and parking for those large trucks. And then during the show itself, after everything's set up, there's plenty of parking, as much parking as is possible to bring into this space. But we did look at providing as much landscaping as we could in that area and have it still function for both of those purposes. Then we have a little seat, in addition to this nice pedestrian plaza, we have a little seating area where people can wait for each other or for pickup and drop off. And we've surrounded it with a little bit of a rock garden, which we'll be bringing up a lot of Santa Barbara sandstone as part of the project, and we'll be creating a rock garden with native succulents, Dudleya, and around here as a backdrop. And then in order to celebrate the begonia nursery that used to be next door, we have in the shade and tucked in next to the seating area, we have an area for some of the specialty begonias that were grown for many years next door. And we've got native planting, again, surrounding the building, and then the building, of course, is going to feel more like a landscape element than it will be like a building because it's composed of basically plants and sandstone. So I'm here for any questions.
Anything, Trish?
And you've gone over everything in the area that we're not that's not under our purview. Everything that's it's just this area mainly.
Yeah, it's
all this area.
Yeah, it's the county
kind of
property.
mainly
We'll be running this through BAR concurrent with.
We also took into account watershed management concerns. And so not only does this serve as a giant bioswale, but we also have bioswales in the planting. So along the front, in front of the building, and over on the other side of the parking lot, those will be designed to accommodate storm water runoff.
Right. This is permeable paving in this area, so that'll, and with our green roof, that'll also help manage the storm water.
And make the situation a lot better than it is now.
Okay, thanks. Do we have any public comment for this item? I don't have any speakers, so I don't have any speaker slips, so you need to come up here. Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, can I have one thing?
Yeah, go ahead. Hold on just one second. And hand me that. I'll take that.
So Steve did touch on the particulars with the city easement running through the county portion owned part of the property. And we are applying for a request for the city to vacate that easement. And early on in conversations with city staff, staff is supportive of it. We're still working through it. We did go to city council for a concept review at the end of January to discuss the overall project, the coordination between the city and the county, in addition to the request to vacate that easement, suggested by city staff to work that out, and a request to do neighbor outreach in advance of that hearing, which the Bowl has done. The Bowl is in close communication with their neighbors. You can imagine why, with the events and wanting to make sure that they are sensitive to their neighborhood. So we did do some outreach in early January, contacting those folks that own property along Luena, the upper leg here, and invited them to a meeting to attend, to ask any questions and participate in the project as we
Okay.
are changing how the area circulates. We had public comment come to City Council as well, and we indicated to the council that we will continue the conversation with the neighbors on how to do this in the most sensitive way. My understanding from talking to the Bull representatives is that if you didn't know it, it's a paper road, really. So it doesn't really feel like a road. I think we've all been to events there.
Right, we
You feel like
understand
you're in
that,
a
yeah.
parking lot. So we are still working with staff on how to deal with the easement vacation and how we deal with the treatment at the end of Luena Drive. And I believe that portion of it, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, where we're showing the termination, maybe you can point to it for me.
Right here.
That is actually going to be part of the county purview, but we would like your comments on that as well to share with the county when we go to that process. Thank you.
Are you doing any proposal up there that you didn't discuss? Because we didn't talk about that.
We're looking at a wall with a gated fence. We spoke to the fire department regarding it. They can get through that area.
We'll install a Knox box
yeah,
there.
so that's
they'll
not a
have
problem.
no change from their point of view in terms of emergency access.
Okay, thanks. We have, is that it, Trish? We have one public speaker, Peggy Martins.
Sit there.
So you've got 2 minutes, Peggy.
That's fine, it won't take.
Okay.
I am one of the property owners on the side where the gate's going to be.
You might want to speak a little closer to that, Mike. Yeah.
I'm concerned just about the gate being a permanent. And I like the project, and I understand why they want the street, but Luena Drive is a city street, I think. Does this belong to the county? I think it's a city street, and I don't know who owns that land, and how does it get back on? I mean, they're just cutting it off, and all I'm concerned right now mainly is that there's an adequate turnaround where that gate is, because we're going to have to drive up there, turn around, and go back out, because there's only one way in and one way out. And I own I don't know where, the property's right over here where the bend is. There's a house here.
That's your house?
No. The vacant lot is right here. It's 3/4 of an acre. But you're going to have to come in, drive around, and probably drive into this driveway and come, because it's kind of a narrow street. It's not a...
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
All right.
So I just want you to take
We're going to ask about that.
Because I'd rather see it open during the day, because I think there's still adequate that you can drive around.
Okay. Thanks, Peggy.
Thanks.
Questions from the board? Chris?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have just a few questions. The area that is currently lawn in front of the dryer building, is that to be re-landscaped or kept as lawn, or?
That portion of the project remains, sorry. I could use this one. That portion of the project is remaining as is. It's not part of this project.
That's correct. The only, to point out, it probably shows better on your landscape plan, but we are pulling out one, there's a small tree right here that gets removed, and then it gets replaced down in that area. We're doing New Parkway in front of the dryer building there.
But so the plan is to leave the lawn in the current condition that it's in? Okay. This might be easier if I show you up here, but the barrier between the new parking and the entry plaza, right here, is there any sort of barrier?
There's curb with planter behind it to pick up the tree row we have there.
Okay.
And then the plaza will come up, to that area.
Right. And then you had mentioned that you're not able to put any additional trees in the parking lot. If we exhausted all possibilities there, you need obviously lots of space back in here. Is there any opportunity to get some trees in there? We're not really reducing the asphalt a whole lot here, so.
The bowl uses that entire area for truck circulation.
Okay.
So it's...
We did take a very careful look at that and tried various solutions to get the trees out of the way, but whatever you do, a truck will probably bump into it,
Right.
which is not that good for the tree.
And then the final question is, obviously this is still fairly preliminary, I guess, but you've labeled permeable pavers. Have you chosen one yet? Or are you
No, still looking at that.
still looking at all that? And details within the paving and all that would be addressed later.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Kirk?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The last concert I went to, we parked in the street somewhere down Milpas, one of the side streets down Milpas, and when we exited, and I think that's true for a lot of attendees of the concerts, right? There's a lot of street parking that goes on for concerts.
Right.
But I was shocked at the end of the concert when I realized how many people were actually parking in the street. Most of the crowd was, and we were all exiting down Lowena Road at the same time. It was just a mass of people trying to walk together, tripping over each other. It was, it was like wall to wall. So, and I'm just curious. I'm sure you've considered that. I'm just curious if you could speak to that and how you intend for those, large crowds of people to exit with the plan that you're showing, how you've thought that through, and how that coordinates with the parking that's down here.
Well, it's basically a wider area. We have an 18-foot path along here versus now I think it's probably, they barricaded off, so you're probably in the 10-foot range right now. So we're getting more width here, and then again, it'll be pretty much the same pattern that you're used to, where you either come through the Glen and you get on the sidewalk here, or you walk down the West Road and you get on the sidewalk at this point. There'll be barricades across here to keep the truck traffic, away from pedestrians crossing the road at this point. You go down the path and out to the street again, that like they do now, there'll be security out on the street. Well, the traffic's blocked at an end of a show when everybody's getting out. Most people are going to the high school, and where there's a lot of parking, and then there's also street parking. So the flow is typical to what you see.
They're not doing anything about the flow, and they can't really.
Right. We're just
a lot of people.
We're giving more width, so
Yeah,
it may
more
not
width.
be quite as tightly packed as what you've seen in the past.
The other question I had was regarding the public comment was there consideration given for the residents being able to turn around prior to the gate? Or
We're looking with planning on that, just to let you know if we put in a turnaround at this area, which we can consider doing. The implement, right now we have a 4.5-foot wall here. The grade falls the further we get out here. And so in doing that, we will have to create a bigger wall, taller wall along this area, and potentially take out some trees. So
Another oak tree.
Okay.
yeah, so that's the implication of what will happen. But we're working with planning to determine, if they want anything at all, if they want it, what diameter radius they want.
Okay, and then
we'll bring that back to you.
All right. And then regarding the building itself, the painted metal looks like flashing and louvers that occur on the roof and also on various parts of the elevation. Did you have an idea of what that would be?
We've used the only thing you'll really see is we have tube steel trellis members here, and we'll match what we've done on this gate structure, and we've done it on all the other projects.
No, I was referring to the metal louvers on the roof.
Over the skylight?
Yes.
Oh, we haven't gotten into that detail.
Okay, but it looked like there was also other areas of painted metal on the elevation, like below the windows and so on. Is that to match the trellis?
I don't know if there's any metal down low on the building. Yeah. We haven't determined that material yet. It'll be a recessed be recessed back in. We'll end up with 8-inch concrete structural walls, then we'll fur off plaster, so we'll probably have close to a foot of depth. In fact, and then when you put insulation on the inside, we'll be over a foot of depth at the windows. So that'll be a recessed panel down at the down low.
Madam Chair, I need to leave, so I'm wondering, is it appropriate for me to put in my comments before I leave? Or not? No questions or not?
Sure.
It's, thank you. Just in general, it's a fabulous proposal. I'm stunned by all the landscaping, the rooftop, the green roof. I think the design with the design of the building, which is mostly recessed into the ground. The way all of that's done, I think it's a really fabulous design. But my concern is that the portion that faces the street and addresses the street is too contemporary. And I think because we have immediately adjacent to it, and which all of us for 1,000 years have thought of as the entrance to the bowl, is this little dryer building, which looks like an old adobe, that there needs to be more of a blending of contemporary and traditional elements, particularly those that are visible from the street and the entranceway to the bowl. I think a better blending is possible there, and it could be in detailing, it could be in materials, it could be in the slight changes in the roof structure. I think there's a number of ways to do it. I know that you're a very capable designer. I think you could find ways to do that. Those are my comments.
Thanks, Kirk. All right, we're back. Questions again. Gary.
Don't have any questions, but thanks, Kirk.
I have a couple questions. One of them having to do with the existing dryer building. Is it adobe or is it slumpstone, the exterior building material of that structure?
Slumpstone.
It is slumpstone. And then having to do with the new proposed structure, there's the skylight. I'm concerned about pedestrians getting on that roof in the sections.
Mm-hmm.
So what type of fencing are you proposing, and what type of fencing exists between your property and the not built yet residential project that's to the north of you?
I think there's a chain link fence between the two right now, and we'll probably propose something along those same lines between
Where are the
the
side
property.
sections?
They are,
Steve?
hold on one
I
sec.
couldn't find them.
Couple pages back from here. And then, I know the ones you want. I know the ones you're looking
Oh, they're
for
there.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was looking, the 42-inch high guardrail, so someone doesn't get, slip. That to me is a question that's not been resolved, and you got this fence here, but I wanted to know if it was existing or proposed, and how do you keep foot traffic from wandering up there?
That'll be a concern of ours, too.
Okay. I have a question for staff, and it has to do with the Luena Road and the concern having to do with the residential project that was recently approved. I forget if it's 31 units or something, but there has to be fire department access for that. There has to...
15.
Oh, dyslexia. 13 units. 13 units. Fire department access is important for that residential unit, and how would that occur if that gate was to be put into
Well, the
place?
gate will have a Knox box for the fire department to access, so they can drive up, open the gate, and go through either way. So they've reviewed it, and they're very comfortable with the design the way it is.
And if the city required kind of a hammerhead or a turnaround, that would just it is feasible on paper. It would just require a series of retaining walls in order to get the diameter necessary.
It may, yes. We're looking at different options for that area. And the turnaround would just be for other vehicles, not for the fire department. It would be for
Residential vehicles for
residential
daily
vehicles
use.
and deliveries and such.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Those.
Oh, I'm sorry,
On that
Trish, really
same
quickly, you had a question, or a comment, yeah.
Earlier, Mr. Gerdine was bringing up similar points as Mr. Zink. I don't know if you're familiar with Luena Drive before you get to that approved development. I looked at an aerial and did some analysis before we went to City Council, and there's about 6 residences currently on the property, that access the road, and most of them come off of the Anapamu side of Luena. The houses are clustered down there. Maybe we have an aerial. Aside from the development that's proposed, so that would add 13 more, but it is a very low volume street. And in terms of the public comment made,
You're picking up these residences here, and then as it comes around.
the city has an easement over Luena Drive. The underlying property owner is the county of Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Little complexities here.
Okay, thanks. More questions?
No.
Okay.
No questions.
Stephanie?
Is there anywhere coming down that pathway or from anywhere on the site that you can see that roof, that green roof?
Probably not. It's probably the 13-unit complex next door that gets to enjoy it most. Yeah.
I'd like to make a comment about the green roof. I believe this is in the hillside, the high fire district. So it may be that the green roof is not required, or not allowed.
Not allowed.
But we're still in the DART process, going through that. But keep that in mind. Maybe there could be a discussion about another kind of roof other than a green
Okay.
roof.
Okay.
Fire department didn't allow us to do one up on the Overlook project we wanted to do. Same concrete structure, but they were worried.
Okay. Do you have any more questions, Stephanie? Okay, I had one question. I'm trying to understand the height of the building. I've got 10 plus 2 to the top of the parapet here, 13
This floor
plus
steps,
2.
by the way. So, yeah, so this one steps down a couple
That's 10
feet.
feet.
So that's a little,
Then this is 13,
Right.
13-foot
yeah,
plate height,
it's about a 15-foot, to answer your question.
15 foot to the top of the parapet.
Right.
Because then if I look at, where's the elevation drawing? I've got,
It gets deceptive there because this.
'Cause
floor
this is lower.
It's 2 feet lower than back
Okay.
here. But looking at the back of the building.
because I
like
get,
15 feet.
so here, I'm at 15 right about here, according to yours. Okay, those look like really
It's-
small people.
Yeah, that could be too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's 15. It's
Yes.
15.
It just looks like a
15
two-story, full two-story building.
It scales just
How big do the people scale?
short, they're 5 feet.
Oh, sorry, all those. It's the children. They're children. Okay, in suits. Okay, I just wanted to resolve that because it looked the elevation makes the people make the elevation look massive here. So I just wanted to.
We'll
I think
fix
there's a
that.
slight slope.
Usually
going down.
architects go the other way.
Yeah, I know. We blew it. Yeah, it's
I know, you
probably-
blew it,
It's
yeah.
probably 15 feet back here, and then as it comes over here, it's dropped
taller.
2 feet, so it's probably 17 feet, something like that there.
It is 17. Yeah. Okay. I didn't have any more questions. Comments? Who's ready to make comments?
Dive in.
Keith, go ahead.
First of all, the modifications are, really technical in nature and don't have any aesthetic impacts. I don't think we should have any issues with that. Like Kirk said, I think it's going to be a great project. I really like the integration of the architecture and the landscape. So I look forward to its development. With regard to Kirk's comments about the perhaps somewhat stark nature of this street elevation, I think it's a pretty small portion of the building, and I think that could probably be resolved with the selection of color and materials, which is kind of what you seem to suggest in these drawings here, kind of having something that blends with that. I think the only other comments would be I'd encourage adding as much bike parking on the county portion as you can. And I don't know, given the truck traffic, what you eventually might be able to do there paving-wise, just to kind of maybe ditch the asphalt and get more permeable materials through there. But yeah, I think it's a really, really good project. Also be interested to see the development of the lighting plan as you work through the process with all the pedestrians coming through there.
Right.
When
Yeah, we have
out.
lighting shown on here, but we can talk about that more next time.
So yeah, I think it's really supportable, and look forward to moving forward.
All right. Thanks, Keith. What about
I'll
you?
jump in. I'm going to lean towards where Kurt was going and it being a little too contemporary in its design. Where I'm looking at it is if you had slumstone in that one building, you can bring some historical massing of the slumstone to some of the other buildings to sort of tie the two together, or at least age it. It's great that you're doing a subterranean building. It reminds me of I think it's Las Positas Park. It's got all those restroom buildings built into the wall. It's gray concrete. But here you've got a choice where I think building material-wise, he was always using the word integrating the historical aspects to it. So I don't think the floor plan has to change or the whole concept, but it's a little bit on the stark side and a little too modern or contemporary. So I'm going to tag on to what he was saying on there. Seriously, I think some kind of fencing or railing needs to be addressed on how you're going to keep people off that roof just by accident for liability issues. And then having to go with the at the top at Luena Road, I'm more for the it's not even our purview that we didn't discuss, but the city is letting go of that easement to have a turnaround or some kind of no-brainer solution for everyday people to sort of turn their car around instead of reaching a dead end. And it might not be our purview to discuss that, but
Sign. It says dead end.
it says dead end.
It would be a really good idea.
I just put no neighbors.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
The other side.
I mean, just to add to that, we
Really
do
quick.
have a pedestrian gate. So for people that walk the neighborhood, and there are a lot of people that do, and they're able to.
Where I was going to tag on to is that the height of the retaining wall, that's 4.5 feet, and if you have to do a turnaround now, it becomes a 10-foot retaining wall. If it's clad in stone, we have examples of that in the Riviera area along APS, where we had squirrely roads that went up and down, and every once in a while you have to build a steep retaining wall. It's fine in certain locations, in certain applications. So it's not the height of the wall that should dictate whether or not we end that road in a responsible way. But for the person who didn't see the dead end or no outlet because the ivy grew over the sign, it makes it simpler for them to turn around. So those are my comments.
Okay.
Thanks, Paul. Gary, Gary. That's you.
Yeah, I'm Paul and Kurt on this. I looked at this and I just felt like it doesn't seem like Santa Barbara Bowl to me. I think the entry is way too modern and it's way too geometric, and I don't think it follows the character of what people believe to come into Santa Barbara to experience that. And there's so much wonderful experience at Santa Barbara Bowl, and I think that this building right here at the entrance, it kind of takes away from that. It kind of takes away from the history of Santa Barbara, and I'm not in favor of how this entry is proposed. The massing I'm okay with. I'm not quite sure about the green roof either. I do like the idea of green roofs. It's not that I don't, but I don't think this is the time or place for it. Right here at the entry, right at the focal point of the beginning of the bowl. I think with the Dreyer building being very Santa Barbara-ish and really that little ranch that used to be there, that's kind of the entry to that little ranch that was there, it just that's a character that we're losing, and it's going to be diminutive in this, and I really feel that it would be a great loss to go this direction. So I'm not in favor of the style of this building. The massing I'm okay with. As far as the turnaround goes up there, we had some discussion with Brian's project up here. We had some neighbors come by, and they were actually parking on the street down there, and they said, we park here every day and so forth. And there is some activity on that street. And I don't know, I think that a turnaround would be a good thing up there, because especially with the new project, there's going to tend to be more activity up on that area than there was before. So I would be in favor of the gate's okay, but I think that it should have some sort of turnaround.
Thanks, Carrie. Anything else?
I just want to say that it's more than materiality that needs to change on this building. I think some forms, it's more than just materiality. There's some forms that need to be adjusted.
Chris.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a really nice looking project as well, and I think actually the materiality for that entry would help quite a bit. I'm not too bothered by the style, because I think it's happening up at where the new stage is and the other accessory buildings up near the top. So I think it actually is starting to provide some continuity throughout the site. One of the issues that I was having is where the new plaza comes in off the street, and there's new parking, maybe, 30 feet that starts in. I'm a little worried safety-wise about having that parking with no barrier between it and the plaza. If somebody gets in their car and there's a big crowd of people and accidentally puts it in drive instead of reverse, have some problems. So I would,
You're talking going forward? So more than a curb?
More than a curb, I would say. I mean, there's been a lot of instances.
There's a planter in there.
There's a planter.
Right.
Right. I think a more substantial physical barrier, as well as a visual barrier, because people walking through that when they're in the plaza, just looking at cars, it's not the best visual impact that you're going for upon entry to the bowl.
Okay.
That at the very front of the site where that wall is, the existing wall, I think I'd actually like to see that come down. You'd mentioned you wanted to keep it high, but I think even if you stepped it a couple of feet back, there's going to be a lot along Milpas,
This one?
and then coming in. Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of people, and it happens now, walking around that corner and just bumping into each other. So if they had a little bit more of a, no pun intended, heads up, seeing people come from different areas, I think that would help there. A little step down. The pavers, I think, is a good call. I would just steer you away from, and I'm sure you'll look into this and choose the right paver, but just avoiding the Disneyland look. I think a tumbled paver might be a nice option for the plaza. I'm fine with the green roof. I think, especially for that new development just above, for them to look down onto something other than standard roof, I think would be a good thing, even if it's not seen from anywhere on the Bowl property. Mm-hmm. And the only other thing was where that Luena gate is proposed on the south side of that is shown as a chain link fence to be put on top of the existing wall. I think
We'll do a wrought iron.
Wrought iron, that's what I was going to say. And I think that was it. The only other thing was in those planters at the front. Susan, I assume those trees would be centered?
Yeah, that would probably be centered.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if there was an issue with, the trucks coming out, if you held it back.
They should be.
Okay, so that's all.
All right, Stephanie.
I really like the project a lot, and I like the contemporary design. You were going?
Also, the mic should be closer to her than speaking, if she can pick them up.
I think it's okay.
If we're going to go more traditional, go towards some of the buildings you've already done on the rest of the campus, the Wendy McCall Terrace building, for detailing similar to that. I really like the idea of the green roof, but if you can't see it, I would really like to see it, from somewhere on the street, or it could be pitched or lowered the parapet or some way, appreciate it from the ground or from the street or in some way. If not, then I would abandon it.
Okay.
Anything else?
I would also think that the pedestrian walkway could be, if it could any way be wider. We talked about it being pretty tight coming down, and people would tend to hop over and go over down the driveway too as well.
We're running a wire down the planter between the driveway and the walkway to try to keep people from doing that.
Yeah.
So there'll be a fence line that runs between.
And path lighting too in that area.
We'll get that taken care of.
And as far as the turnaround, if it could be a hammerhead or three-point turn or something other than a big, huge 40-foot radius.
Okay.
That would be great too up there.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. I'm going to stay away from the turnaround and the hammerhead
Thanks.
altogether, because I know that it's not our purview anyway, and I appreciate the comments, but I know that the best solution will come about somehow.
I'd love design comments on what we've proposed to convey over to the county too, if someone had design comments on it.
I think you've gotten quite a few, the wrought iron as opposed to chain link fencing, concern about how people turn around, exacerbating the heights of the retaining walls, but trying to work with that if they want the turnaround, those kind of things. But I think that's all we can say about the turnaround right now. Unless somebody else has anything that they didn't add. I really like the project. I say don't make it any taller, and if you can, keep it a little shorter, because it's marginally appearing a little massive, and it's a one-story building that I think all the other structures, I know that Susan's going to do a great job landscaping, but I'd appreciate that plate height. I understand why you did it, because you've got an existing grade to deal with, and that's why you put the skylight back there to pick up that. But if you could make even more of a drop in there, so that the scale of the building as you approach is a human scale. 17 feet tall is, this is what, a 12-foot ceiling in here, I think. 5 feet taller than the height of this room. So it's, I think it's marginally too tall. But I like the contemporary approach, and I think it's completely appropriate for what's going on up here. But I would appreciate any kind of incorporation of natural materiality and possibly something more than just a very plain stucco wall with no fenestration at the entry. Any way you can incorporate more of the trellis. I turned to this page so that I could point to the trellises that you're incorporating in the other portions of the projects that are already built. The Wendy McCaw Terrace and some of the detailing that's in that building is very nice, and I think if you could pick up on some of that for this structure, I think it would be really nice. But I'm not of the school that this has to look like a traditional Spanish Mediterranean building. And I don't really think I have anything else to add. So this is a comments only. We've been asked to separate the comments from the County Bowl, the Santa Barbara Bowl
County property.
County property versus the city property. So whoever makes a motion should separate it into the 1130 North Milpas property and then the county property. I don't know
1122.
1122 is the county property. So just keep that in mind when you make your motion. And I'd like to move on to the next agenda item, so I would like to get a motion. Okay, thanks, Keith.
This is indefinite continuance back to full board eventually with the following comments. And first comments are regarding the county property. And so the board would like to see the chain link fence replaced with the wrought iron to match the rest of the property. Some of the board members feel that a vehicular turnaround on Llewellyn is appropriate. The county property applicants encouraged to add as much bicycle parking as feasible in the existing parking lot, and to look to ways to mitigate the storm water runoff despite the paving requirements for truck maneuvers. And I think that's all we have for the county. Regarding the city property and the project proper, the board finds that the modifications requested are technical in nature and have no aesthetic impact. Overall, the board is comfortable with the site planning configuration and the mass, bulk, and scale of the project. Applicants encouraged to look for ways to reduce the height of the parapet of the building. Applicants encouraged to study further separation and barriers between the parking and the pedestrian plaza to promote safety where the two meet. Applicants to study the configuration of the retaining wall, the existing retaining wall where it adjoins the sidewalk on Milpas Street to provide for pedestrian visibility. Applicants encouraged to study the street facade of the structure and specifically color material selection to relate to the existing dryer building. And I think that's it.
Do I have a seconder of the motion?
Can I make a comment on this first? Are you continuing this to the Planning Commission, or are you coming back before you go to Planning Commission? And then the other comment was the turnaround is actually city purview, so it's not county.
But it's Planning Commission purview. Right.
Turnaround is Planning Commission purview, so that's under the 1130 comment.
Didn't understand the distinction there.
Yeah.
So
It's
the other
complicated.
column.
Sure.
The wall is
I didn't
county.
either.
The turnaround, we'll work with staff and the Planning Commission on that. It's complicated.
So put that in that other column, Gloria. The comments about the turnaround.
Do you want us back here before we go to Planning Commission?
Let's just see where this motion goes.
Leave that up to you guys
Yeah.
and what your schedule is. I don't know what your path of travel is.
Well, actually, we would need a recommendation that you want us to just move forward to Planning Commission, or do you want?
It's really not up to us.
Yeah,
We move. Is it?
typically you decide whether you want to see it before we move to Planning Commission or not.
Well, but then it's the maker of the motion that would make that decision.
Why don't we go ahead and have you return one more time to full board before Planning Commission, just so we can hopefully get comments together.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Seconded by Chris. Under discussion, I just had, did did you want to add anything about the green roof, a resolution, or is they already know they need to, so it's just kind of a... Okay, and then I had one comment about you mentioned reduce the parapet, but my point was not necessarily to reduce the parapet. It was to look for any opportunity to reduce the plate height, the overall height.
Reduce the overall height. We'll leave that up to
If that's okay with the maker and the seconder. And anybody else have any discussion items?
I have one discussion item, not to go on the minutes, but if I can have your attention, if it seems like we have a 17-foot high wall here, and the reason why it's 17 feet high is because back here we have, say, a 25-foot high wall with the slopeness for the skylight, and then we have the flat roof. Just something perhaps you looked into, or you don't want to do it. If you had a 12-foot plate here, and then this was a red tile roof that went up, and you had a 3 and 12 roof pitch that matched this, we don't mind looking at a tile roof, but that brings down this front elevation to pedestrian scale, because you've got your 5.5-foot person here and a 17-foot high wall.
We'll look at the height for the building. We also have this trellis which is down off the parapet,
Correct.
which will lower your height also. So
Okay. We don't really have time to get back into comments again, but I think the applicant understands the situation, and as the architects, they can come up with ways of studying the reduction in the plate, too. More discussion items? No. All right. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? No oppositions?
Yeah, I'm going to be opposed.
Okay, one opposition. Abstentions? Okay, motion carries.
thank you.
Thanks, guys. Okay, moving forward to our last item on the agenda is 301 South Hope.
Thank you.
All right, this is a concept review of an exterior remodel of an existing 24,000 square foot auto dealership. The existing Spanish style is proposed to be changed to a new architectural style. Okay, your name for the record.
Richard Graham.
Okay,
And Brian Cornell.
thank you.
I was going to let Richard explain why we're here
Okay.
to start off with.
Well, the Chevrolet is now a 100-year-old brand, and I've been with them 50 years almost, but a lot of the buildings across the U.S. are very substandard in a modern selling climate. Some of them people are selling Chevrolets out of recycled grocery stores or old gas stations, and so GM has come up with a standard they'd like to apply across the U.S. It's a very similar standard in every city, and they're asking for us to remodel our store, the frontage of it, to match that national standard. Brian built a very nice building for us 15 years
I
ago.
didn't build it, I just designed it.
Well, you sure designed a nice one, and it was approved by this board, and I appreciate it, and I do like this. They want me to get rid of the red tile roof and the smooth trowel finish, and they want to put some metal on the front of it, and before I pay them a lot of money, I just want to see what your feelings are about changing the style of the Santa Barbara look. And I think I just heard it the last half hour.
Okay, do you want to do the presentation, or
I don't,
who's gonna do it?
I think the drawings speak for themselves. We didn't do the drawings. This was done by Gensler per GM, so I think that it sort of speaks for itself.
Do you have any
and-
photos so we can just
Yeah.
look at the building first? All right. Let's look at front of the building, maybe.
You know, when we did these back in the early 90s, we did both dealerships that are along here, the one that is now the Smart Car dealership and Dick's. And, you know, the idea was something that was sort of in the character of the old, 20s showrooms, car dealerships that we would have seen in Southern California was the compelling concept.
So, just to orient the board on all the elevations and where they are, Brian, you want to just,
Okay.
here's Hope,
So
right?
this view here is really the dominant view when you look at the building from Hope, and the front arcade, which is in this area right here, and of course all the services back in this area. They should be on. So you can see this corner, which is a two-story portion, is that little appendage that sticks out there, and then you can see the shop area continues. That's the back. So there should be, I guess that really kind of shows the service bays. And then
What's
this is
going
right
on
now, this is a
all
blank
around
wall.
the site? What's going on around?
Well, this is a vacant lot right here.
Do you,
Yeah,
Yeah.
this
I'm
is
just trying-
actually owned by Hughes, and across the street, there's a housing project, there's Don Sharp office buildings that are across Hope. Of course, the other dealership, the Smart Car dealership, is over here, and then this is a creek, San Antonio.
And La Cumbre Plaza back here.
Yeah, La Cumbre
I guess,
Plaza.
I guess I was
backs
just
onto
having a
that.
problem because all I saw was the site and nothing around it, and all the photos are just the site with nothing around it. So I was looking for a context photo.
Sorry,
That's all right.
that's my fault.
Maybe there's some in here.
I don't think so. I think we just have the shots of the dealership building.
Yeah, I get it now. Okay, I'm here.
Madam Chair, staff will have some comments on it before you
Okay.
make comments.
There is this, Don, which kind of helps if you want to.
It's the second
orient
property
it.
in, right? on
Yeah, it's
Hope?
the second one
Yeah.
in. So the way we're looking at this, here is
Yeah.
Dick's dealership. This is the one that is nearest the freeway. This is that vacant lot, the creek
Got it.
that runs through.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you. Okay. What are you doing? What are they doing? What do they
Cladding
want
it
to
in
do?
metal. So it's really, I think, the best thing that.
Two photos would be
Well, the little rendering actually
Yeah.
would be the best thing to see based on these photos. That
just changing this look to that look.
that's what they want to do.
Big blue bar
So
in the
it's
front.
aluminum panels, and of course, the signage is not subject to your review at this point, but that's what their proposal is.
Here, this one right here. And then you have elevations, I presume, or
Yeah,
not?
there are elevations in here. So that's the front that faces Hope. So you can see what there is proposing in terms of the metal. And that wraps around the side. And then the rest of this would just be painted
They'll leave it stucco for
plaster. So they bring that metal back around past the service bay.
Here, and then it.
Yeah,
Is that what I'm looking at?
shows. Yeah, that shows on the front elevation, Don. So you're looking; those are the service bays. So this
This is
plane,
set back,
this
yeah.
plane is there, and this plane is up forward.
But this is also metal, yeah. Or what do they call it?
Yeah,
And this is
aluminum
stucco.
panels.
Aluminum.
Remain stucco.
That is to remain stucco. Yeah. And I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure what they're proposing to do with the roof.
Yeah, if they want me to take the tile off, just the roof.
That's a red tile,
So
that's a clay tile roof right
yeah,
now.
you can see that. So that would presumably go to a metal.
Is that your presentation?
Yep.
All right, do we have any public comment? None. Questions from the board? No questions? Okay, comments. Stephanie?
Opposed to this project.
How do you really feel about it?
I really like the detailing and the historical character that Brian tried to create in his 1990s version of the property. It's in keeping with Santa Barbara style, and we worked really hard to try to get to achieve that, and I think it did so more successfully than any other dealership out there.
Thank you.
All right, Keith?
Thank you. Yeah, I would agree with Stephanie. I don't think it's supportable. I mean, given the context next across from the other auto dealership that's in a Spanish Revival style, if this were up Hitchcock, where there's other more contemporary dealerships, that it might be a direction that's plausible, but I think in this location it's incompatible with the context.
Thanks, Keith. Paul? All right, is that it? Gary? Yes? Chris? Same? Okay. I don't have anything further to add. So I agree. I don't think it's appropriate.
Madam Chair?
Yeah.
Can we
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention to the applicants is that it seemed to me that the signage was driving sort of the facades, and we did scale the signs, and they did seem to be oversized, I think 28 inches. And, one of the strong messages I'd like the board to tell them is, if you do consider a facade remodel, that the signage not drive the architecture, because although these dealerships have been given some exceptions typically because of the quantity of makes and models that they sell, typically the oversized letters isn't always a guarantee. And as the sign committee rep, I think you would know that. So whatever you want to include in your motion, I would encourage you to do so.
Yeah, I'll just tell the applicants that that Jaime's right, that we have had applicants request letter height waivers to allow larger letters, and it's not looked upon very favorably. And in addition to that, it's highly scrutinized as to the directional signage, where the service bays are, things like that. So you might want to pass that on to Gensler as well. So that's yeah.
To make a motion, I would ask the applicant, are you all right if we deny this project and state our reasons why? Then I would recommend denial without prejudice, stating that the proposed project is not in keeping with the neighborhood context of Santa Barbara, and it is a direction we don't want to see in this area.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Anything else to that motion? No? Second? Seconded by Gary. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries.
Now I know what it feels like to be one of those out-of-town architects, that comes in and gets completely beat up and just sitting there forlorn, and you need a drink, which I need. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So that concludes the Architecture Board of Review meeting for February already, 21st. Thank you for listening.
Madam Chair.